In 2011, I had an accident, and I was closer to the end of my life than ever before. During this experience, I visited the spirit world and was brought back to life with the condition that I would fulfill one task. Since then, I feel like a link between heaven and earth. I do not contact the spirit world, but the spirit world contacts me. And I am happy that what was entrusted to me in the other world has already come true to some extent. I am sure that this process will continue in some way. I do not know how, I do not know when, I am just a small person, says farmer Vincent Hensle, who lives in Switzerland. This man was engaged in horse breeding for most of his life. Vincent Hensle was almost 60 years old when he experienced clinical death, during which he found himself in the spirit world. From there, Vincent was brought back to life on one condition. I have a stable and several horses. My horses need pastures, hay. That day, I was going to take a tractor to mow the grass. And while I was doing this, some insect got into my eye. As a result, I lost control of the tractor. It turned towards a steep slope. And when I was carried down, I felt that I should die. This thought pierced my head like lightning. My last salvation was to jump out of the tractor. I did so, but the out-of-control machine hit me. At that moment, it seemed to me that I was hit with a large hammer, describes the beginning of his story Vincent Hensle. He was carried down the slope. When his fall stopped, he took out his phone and called his brother. Hensle did not remember if he managed to say anything to his brother before he lost consciousness. Having lost consciousness, the farmer saw a giant ball of light, which soon swallowed him. Once inside this sphere, Vincent found himself surrounded by beings. He and they were passing through the light. At first, Vincent Hensle was confused by everything that was happening. He was no longer inside his body. He had no weight anymore. Hensle was constantly being thrown up and down like a balloon. But he could still see like a human being and even speak. Vincent Hensle asked himself, "Where am I? What happened to me?" Then, for the first time, he realized, "You are no longer alive, you are dead. You are now in a completely different world." I thought about how people often remember heaven. Perhaps this is where I was. I had yet to find out. Once in heaven, I saw many unusual things. For example, shapes that looked like figures. They could not be attributed to human beings. But I seemed to recognize some of them. I felt that they were dear to me. As if they were my relatives. Perhaps my parents, who were waiting for me there. But I didn't recognize them in appearance. There were other beings. They were made entirely of light. And their presence was pleasant for me. They all seemed so light because they were floating in the air, says Vincent Hensle. The farmer was still wondering where he was. He didn't believe that all this was true. Everything around him seemed so impossible, but at the same time so real. Hensle looked around and kept asking himself questions until he saw something heading towards him from above. Hensle called what he saw forces that could be compared to an energy field. He understood that these forces brought good with them. As they approached, everything around him was filled with some kind of inner light. And all this was very powerful. Vincent Hensle was confused. A voice told him to paint pictures of another world and show them all over the world. This task seemed impossible and at the same time almost sacred to the farmer. He promised to do his best to accomplish this task, but also emphasized that the required skills were beyond his control. The voice that spoke to Hensle reassured him and promised that upon his return all conditions would be created to help him with this. Vincent Hensle agreed, and then his journey back began. He saw various things that were hidden as if behind a fog. Hensle was convinced that there were many good places here. But he also learned that there were corners of darkness in which Vincent Hensle saw souls behind windows in small houses. It seemed that they were waiting for something. These houses were surrounded by mountains and fog. Hensle turned away from them, preferring not to look in that direction. Passing through the light or accompanied by the light, he slipped right into his body. When this happened, Hensle felt some kind of force flowing through him. He believes it was a life current that came from somewhere outside. Doctors provided Hensle with the necessary assistance on the spot, and then he was taken to the University Hospital in Freiburg. After that, Hensle ended up in a rehabilitation hospital. He spent about a year in hospitals. For a long time, I was bothered by pain, but what worried me most was how I would fulfill the task that was set before me. I understood that I was brought back to life for this. And if I fail to draw, what will they do with me then? This thought began to worry Vincent. When Hensle felt better, he went up to the top floor of the rehabilitation center where he was staying. Here, patients could draw, embroider, and even make pottery. Hensle went up to the studio and said he wanted to paint. They gave him a canvas, paints, and brushes. For 3 days, Hensle returned to this canvas, but he did not know where to start. One night, he felt an irresistible urge to get out of bed and go paint. He did not know how to handle either paints or a brush. Hensle did not even know what to paint. But he felt a force behind him that would help him. Hensle painted all night and then went to bed. After painting dozens of pictures, Vincent Hensle came to the realization that he was helped to do this by the spiritual world, which was behind him while he was painting. Someone was sitting behind him and gently guiding his hand. This is how Hensle's collection of paintings was created. He painted some of them with a break of several weeks and always in cooperation with otherworldly forces. And all this time someone was guiding my hand, otherwise I would never have done it on my own initiative, Hensle says. The farmer felt this support even when he was looking for the buildings in which these paintings were later exhibited. Everything that was promised to me during my journey to the other world happened. After this incident, I realized that every person needs to prepare for life after death, because this life exists in reality. And even now we can do a lot for the spiritual world, which we will definitely encounter later. It can give us so much good. But we must understand that there are things there that are not good at all. Therefore, it is important for each of us to think about this, because our life can end so early and so unexpectedly. I have already experienced this, Vincent Hensle shared his thoughts.